make things happen. So that being said, enough yapping from me. I have our next presenter, who is going to be Robin Powell, who is the Director of Policy and Planning from, am I correct, Robin? Oh, I'm sorry. All right. So I just lied to everybody. Our next presenter is going to be Mortgage Finance Authority, and we are going to be having Rada Moss, who is a Research and Development Manager, and Sonja Unrau, a Senior Research and Development Manager, and they're going to give us some insight, ladies and gentlemen, into they're going to give us some insight into the housing strategy and how housing strategy affects what we're going to be doing here. So with that, I'm going to turn this over to Sonja, and we are going to jump up on presentation number 2. Okay, hang on one second, ladies and gentlemen. I got to share my screen on the Zoom. And Miss Sonja, I am going to turn it over to you.
Well, thank you all so much for inviting us to be here. It's just really inspiring to feel all this energy around housing, which we've all heard is integral to everything. And in our housing industry, from nonprofit service providers assisting people experiencing homelessness, to the lenders and realtors helping people achieve the dream of home ownership, to local governments who are actually building the affordable rental and home ownership housing units. Our industry is full of mission-driven professionals. However, often we operate in silos. We focus on our one specific issue, but we can sometimes lose sight of the big picture. How does homelessness connect to home ownership? And recognizing this need, in 2021, MFA brought together a group of leaders in housing to create the statewide, the New Mexico housing strategy. Oh,
I'm sorry.
Oh, I'm sorry. I didn't even. And this strategy is meant to serve as a roadmap to address the continuum of housing needs. It's meant to be a common source of information among housing partners and also residents, so they feel there's a statewide response to housing and also understand the goals and intentions. It's also meant to provide practical solutions to streamline the barriers that, as I go into data, that have contributed to these sometimes dismal numbers we see. And it's also meant to be a repository of innovative ideas. That really can be the foundation of change to address the housing landscape in New Mexico. Oops, sorry. And this strategy drew on extensive stakeholder engagement. We interviewed close to 100, in addition to the leadership of our advisory committee, we interviewed close to 100 housing partners. We interviewed, I think we issued a resident survey to about 1,400 New Mexico residents. This survey was really targeted at the lowest income residents to get their perspective. But we also drew on a number of quantitative data sources so that we had the specific starting places to inform our strategy recommendations. This includes the American Community Survey, this decennial census, University of New Mexico Geospatial and Population Studies, Bureau of Labor Statistics data, HUD data, Consumer Financial Protection Bureau data, as well as the National Housing Preservation Database. So I'll just jump right into the numbers to begin with. Despite recessions in the 1980s, population growth and development were strong in New Mexico. Positive and consistent growth continued up until the 2000s when the Great Recession hit. And since that period, building really hasn't rebounded. And over the last 20 years, in fact, in McKinley County, we've actually experienced a loss of units of about 2% of the overall number of units, which equates to about 400. McKinley County is expected to grow. McKinley County is expected to add about approximately 2,000 jobs between 2020 and 2035. In order to support this growth, we need an uptick in development. And this is of all types of housing, from single family to manufactured homes to multifamily units. And really, since the 90s, the distribution of homes being built has really shifted towards single family. And this is despite changing needs and preferences. And why does housing diversity type matter? Because low income and racially diverse households are more likely than other households to live in housing that is not single family, your typical standalone single family home. And really, in many cases, this is because other options are relatively affordable. And diverse housing options help a community accommodate fluctuations in household composition, income changes, employment changes, and aging or population, and just ensure that there's affordable options, market rate and affordable alike. In McKinley County, 65% of residents live in a single family home, and 23% live in a mobile or manufactured home. 8% live in single family attached, so this is like a duplex or triplex, and these can be ownership or rental units, and 3% live in apartments. As mentioned earlier, there's an issue with housing condition issues in our state, but particularly in McKinley County. Units in poor condition are typically naturally acquiring affordable housing. And this is becoming the only choice for lower income households. Populations most likely to live in substandard housing include persons with disabilities, renters, and seniors. In McKinley County, there's nearly 3,800 units that lack complete kitchen facilities. More than 5,000 units in McKinley County lack complete plumbing. And statewide, Native Americans are more likely to live in substandard housing compared to any other race or ethnicity group at a rate of 7.3%. It should come as no surprise to you all that growth in rents has outpaced growth in income. I'll note in the presentation packet, it says that income has only increased 5% over the last 10-year period, 25% in your packets, it's actually 5%, whereas growth in rent has been about 35% over that same period. It would become to no surprise to anybody that this divergence in rent growth and income is impacting affordability, as we've heard from people in this room today. Another way to kind of gauge the housing situation is to look at the rental gap. The rental gap shows the difference between the number of renter households in an area and the number of rental units affordable to them, and that's using this 30% metric. You're not paying more than 30% of your gross income on housing cost. The state's rental gap is concentrated among households who are earning 30% of an area median income. So these are our low income families. And the 30% median income in in McKinley County for a family of 4 is $18,300. The statewide gap for this income level, this 30% AMI group, is 32,000 units. In McKinley County, this is 800 units. It's going to take a combination of both new affordable rental units, rental assistance, and market rate production, because we want people occupying units that are affordable to low income households that could afford more to be able to move up, so that those units are then freed up for lower income households. Cost burden, the metric I just mentioned, where households paying more than 30% of income is is kind of been the historic benchmark of measuring housing cost. And as you can see by this graph, cost burden is very much concentrated among the lower income levels. But increasingly, we're seeing these middle income households experiencing cost burden. In McKinley County, there's more than 1,600 renter households, and that's 20% of the renter population who are cost burden. When we think about severe cost burden, that's paying more than 50% of a household income towards housing cost, it becomes a serious concern that compromises a household's ability to meet basic needs ranging from food, healthcare costs, childcare costs, and those costs are going up too. So we see these everything is stretching people's income thin. And when you're at the 50% cost burden level, it really puts these households at a risk of housing stability, eviction, or foreclosure. Homeownership. The squeeze in the rental market is also manifesting in the homeownership arena. This graph compares the number of renters or the distribution of renters across income levels to homes affordable to them. Basically, what this looks at is how many are the percentage of renters at the 30%, or let's say the 50 to 80% area median income. Like in this graph, that'd be 19%, to the number of mortgages originated in 2020 that would be affordable to them. So we see overall statewide, there was 19% of renters were between 50 and 80% area median income, and about 30% and about 30% of mortgage originators were affordable to them. In Gallup, so we're thinking about renters entering homeownership. In Gallup, for every 100 renters between 50 and 100% area median income, there was 3 mortgages originated that would have been affordable to them. So, and this is tough because we want, as Amy mentioned, we want people to move up the housing continuum to open up units for lower income households. Like rents, home prices have far exceeded gains in income. In McKinley County between 2018 and 2021, median home prices increased 26%, wage increases or median earnings increased just 2%. And for many New Mexicans, their housing needs are really intensified by periods of instability, healthcare challenges, poor housing conditions, geographic insulation, and perhaps precarious industries they work in. According to a recent analysis by the New Mexico Coalition to End Homelessness, between 15,000 and 20,000 people in New Mexico were at risk or experienced homelessness in 2020. Native Americans and Black Americans are overrepresented among our state's homeless population. And the New Mexico Coalition to End Homelessness estimates there's about 6,500 people that really, they're not getting any services to help them either stay housed or exit homelessness. There is limited data on homelessness at the county level. And our stakeholders really emphasize that in rural areas like McKinley County, homelessness is absolutely underestimated. And one way we can kind of gauge it is looking at overcrowding. As mentioned earlier, households may take in a friend or family member who can't really afford housing on their own, and they're doubling up, and this is preventing literal homelessness. But this is like the overcrowding metric is more than one person per room, excluding bathrooms. So, you know, people living in living rooms, overcrowded bedrooms. We need to recognize the need for culturally supportive housing if we need to build bigger homes for multi-generational families. But overcrowding in this case is an indicator that people are really trying to just keep their family and friends off the street. And indeed, the rate of overcrowding in the state is 3%. In McKinley County, it's 12%. I don't like presenting these grim statistics because I don't want this to feel like an insurmountable problem to address, but really our numbers in New Mexico are smaller than bigger states. We have tools to tackle these issues. And with that, I will turn it to Rita to give a more solution-oriented lens to these sometimes dismal numbers.
Good job.
One second, I'm just gonna